Welcome back to the channel, people, and in this video we will be reviewing episodes 1 and 2 of HBO Max's The Last of Us, which is currently streamed. Covering 1 and 2 came out in, I believe, 2020 when it was announced that The Last of Us was going to have a live adaptation for TV. And when I also heard that it was going to come from the creator of Chernobyl, my ears perked up and I got instantly mounted with so much excitement for this project. Chernobyl was one of the greatest TV miniseries that I've ever seen, and best believe in the coming days you will see a review for that as well, because what an absolutely incredible show that was. And with the creative hand of Craig Mazin giving his interpretation, his adaptation of The Last of Us, and it's well documented that he was a huge fan of the game, I just felt like this project was in great hands. The premiere of the first episode couldn't have opened in a better way. I mean, everything in these episodes really do feel really well thought out, and everything is really just done to a T. And even cinematography, of especially when we have that initial time period before the world descends into complete disparity and chaos of the cordyceps infection. We get this epilogue with these scientists during 1968, and they're talking about the various forms of infection and so on and so forth. And then they get onto the topic of talking about fungi. And what I love so much about this scene is that as the scientist is talking more in depthly about what this infection could come to be and how dangerous it is to everyone's livelihood on the planet, the camera is just getting closer and closer, just zooming in, honing in. The overall reality and despair is getting to everyone, and you can't even hear a sound. And then you get this really nice medium close-up of the scientist, and he just says, we lose. That's it. And then you see the TV host just take a gulp, like, oh shit, this is real, and we could be fucked. We go into the perspective of Sarah, who's played by Nico Parker. And this is where you feel the real adaptation come into play, because in the game you just kind of wake up and you're in the situation, and the apocalypse is just kind of evolving from Sarah's very confused perspective. But in this pilot, what we get is a very lived in first person ideology with Sarah. We see her wake up, her bouncing off her dad, Joel, and Tommy, which is not something that was in the game. But, you get a real sense of the relationship with everyone and how kind of harmonious everyone is with each other. And, yeah, it's through her perspective, and you can kind of see how everything, especially in the subtext of the dialogue of the scenes, is all about a disagreement. Starts off with Sarah asking Joel, do we have pancake mix? They don't have that. And then Sarah resorts to making eggs, and then in the eggs there's shells there. And then Tommy comes into the scene. He tries to get something from the fridge, but it's off. And also, just something that hasn't really been bearing in mind with most people. This is just a perspective now. Funny enough, I've just thought of it. Tommy picking up whether that was and it was off. Possibly, could it have been what he picked up? Could it have been the cordyceps already in that food that was working its way, and he put it back? But there's this overall easiness that's just happening throughout the time that we get with Sarah during the day. She goes to school, and there's a light glimmering in her face, and she's trying to concentrate. And I always actually amounted that to, again, this just fits in with the uneasy nature of the subtext and what we all know presumably is going to happen. The full-fledged post-apocalyptic world is going to take place with cordyceps. But then someone pointed this out, and the twitching is actually the symptoms of the cordyceps working its way into someone. So that kid had cordyceps. And I just thought, wow, like the level of attention to detail with that is just utterly brilliant. Then we go, and then another situation arises when bumps into a neighbour. The neighbours offer their cookies. They don't want the cookies. And that great moment of horror and suspense where it's this very focusing shot on Sarah, and in the background we see the neighbour we see the cordyceps making its way and affecting her, and Sarah's completely oblivious. That was a great shot. Very Jordan Peele-esque, very Mike Flanagan-esque. And I almost found that like a tip of the hat to those filmmakers. So great work from Craig Mazin on these end. Everything just goes full-fledged, mental, and we get a lot of great like one-shots that are kind of handheld. It kind of makes you feel the intensity of everything that's happening around the characters, and they really just done it shot for shot. Which was really great. And seeing Sarah pass away in 2013, and then seeing her pass away in 4K, and now seeing her pass away in live action, it never gets any better. It's always terrible, and that moment always just tears your soul out of your chest. And just wonderful acting from Pedro Pascal. Just like, whoa, unbelievable. I've got to really give it to Nico Parker, because her playing Sarah with all this new added layers to her character, she had a lot to experiment with, and I felt like she really honed that in. And with this TV series, because it's mounted a new influx of people that are watching it, they would have had no prior knowledge of the games. And for a new influx of a fan base to feel so attached to her, I think that really just complements everybody's work across the board when it comes to the crew, the cast, and Nico Parker really just giving a great interpretation of Sarah as a character. Because they would have just been led to believe that we're seeing the apocalypse through a perspective. 9 times out of 10, you're led to believe, if you've had enough screen time on a character, 9 times out of 10, you think that they're a main character, and then we're going to go on this journey with them for the foreseeable future of the episodes in the season. But that's not the case. And as we know, Sarah's death is the anchor of who Joel becomes throughout this post-apocalyptic dystopian reality that we know as The Last of Us. And then flash forward into the future, 20 years later, we just see how just downtrodden society's become since this large-scale pandemic. And we get to understand how Harkonian the federal government is. If you're infected, you bite the dust. If you try to leave the compound, you're good as dead. Very draconian austerity levels taken. And in that, we get this wonderful drastic cut of the flash forwards. And we see Joel, and he's doing a shift where he's literally getting rid of bodies in a massive bonfire. And to see him just prior seconds to go to have so much empathy for another human being, and then to see how he's become like 20 years later just being completely okay with, you know, disposing and burning a young kid's body. Not that he's doing it, but you know, it's the compound's measures. Just to see that he just knows it's now a part of his life was really heartbreaking in itself. Just to see that level of humanity and that empathy has gone, and now it's just turned into despair and nihilism. We get to see the Fireflies for the first time, pretty much in line with the games as well, I'd say. We also get introduced to Tess and Marlene. We get to see how they operate, and you know, we see the same instance of Tess being double crossed with her trying to get her car battery, and this all kind of fits in situ with getting the car battery so they can go on their journey to find Tommy. We get to see Joel and Ellie meet for the first time, and I love how in that situation Joel looks at Ellie like as if she's like a feral animal. Like, it's almost like as if Joel is intrigued by her, you know. And I think it was wonderfully played off by Pedro Pascal. And I mean, for the first time that we get to see Ellie, played by Bella Ramsey, I think Bella Ramsey's doing a great job. More so with what happens near the end of this episode. So they begin their quest to head east, I believe, on their journey. And Marlene tells them, look, she's special, we can't tell you exactly why, you just got to do what I say, and along the way we'll do a deal, get you, you know, resources and, you know, all that good jazz there. And they embark on their journey, and one of the security guards that's on the lookout on the compound that was doing business with Joel, they find themselves in a situation, and you know, that with them trying to leave the compound, the security guard can't let them because it's invasive to the rules and blah blah blah. And yeah, drug dude pulls out the rifle on them, and then Joel's fight or flight response kicks in, you know, as an element from his PTSD to how the government just basically shot down and attacked him and his daughter, leading to Sarah's death. And in that moment, he just kicks in and beats him to a pulp, I presume. I mean, that guy's definitely got to be dead. I mean, it'd suck if he's still alive, because his head is looking like mashed potato, I can tell you that now. And in that moment, we see Ellie like intrigued by the beatdown that this guy's getting. And at that moment actually, triggered a lot of people. There was a debate about that. Why would Ellie be intrigued by Joel smashing in another person's face? You know, a lot of people say, well, she's not a serial killer. She's not, you know. But I think that this is Bella Ramsey giving it a great interpretation of Ellie, in the sense of, if you think of Ellie that, you know, she's been told to do her whole life. Do this, do that. You can't leave the compound. It's dangerous, right? And then you got the perspective of Marlene. Well, you know, you can't do certain things because you're special. So we got to wrap you in cotton wool, you know. And her looking at Joel, seeing of, no, I'm not going to take anyone's shit anymore, and I'm going to take things by force with my own hands. That's almost, you know, to her, that's like incentivizing. That's like euphoric to her, because she's told her whole life there's certain things that you can't do. She's literally been put in a box, you know, and that kind of love is what is going to get them through the foreseeable future of the episode. So we segue into episode 2, Infected. At the beginning of this episode, it opens with Jakarta in Indonesia, and then, you know, just a very mundane day. You see traffic go by. We see people chilling at a restaurant, and then we see these government members walk in and then pull aside a scientist who's just finishing up her lunch. And then they start talking. You know, we need you for something. And then we are presented with the shit that hits the fan. There's been samples of DNA from somebody. She checks it out, and then lo and behold, on the table, there's a body. She has to check it out. And seeing somebody in a hazmat suit, when you know that prior to this very moment, that for at least I'd say, 3 years prior to this moment we've been seeing people in hazmat suits because of a pandemic that has already happened. And then you're seeing this scene play out, you're thinking, you know, the fear is like almost times 5, because in a way you've lived it. It's a weird feeling that I had when I was watching that scene. You know, she goes down inspecting the bullet wound, then working her way up to the mouth, finding the tendrils, and then we get another nice pulling to attention on the scientist when it's just her and the government official. And what I love, I mean, it's such a simplistic thing that just before the scene starts, the government guy gives her a cup of tea, like as if this is going to be a really chilled, nice conversation that they're about to have, and that in some way or form that there will be a resolution after this conversation. And then you see the camera just starting to pull in, and the actress doing a great job, and she's just basically saying, look, there's no cure, bomb, that's it, it's all done, it's all finished, please can I go back to my family so I can be with them? And then roll the credits of the epic Last of Us theme. So let's just think, the dialogue, that is the last thing that you want to hear from somebody that works in that profession, and they're telling you there's no resolution, there's nothing we can do, kill us all now. It's the last thing you'd ever hear, because we're, as human beings, we're always built and tent up on hope. It's the last thing you'd want to hear. It's just a really shell-shocking moment. Fast forward, we're trying to make her way through. Tess and Joe are still kind of apprehensive about Ellie. A bit of initial bonding. We get some great cinematography as well. It feels like it's a combination of real in person and a bit of green screen as well. Like obviously I think that when they initially come out of the building and they see the collapsed buildings, that's green screen. But it was done really well. It looked quite believable. We see a little bit of a back and forth between Joel and Ellie. Another thing to quote on the cinematography as well. I love the idea that, well, it's kind of beautiful haunting in the sense that humanity's completely just fallen. But the ecosystem outside of that, in the buildings, on the ground, things are overgrown, trees are everywhere. It's like one life form has diminished, but another life form is thriving. We get simplest shots of like frogs jumping across pianos, and there's moss everywhere, and it's little things like that make the world that Craig Mazin has built feel really lived in. And with this episode, we get Neil Druckmann doing the directing, and I think that was a great choice because I think in a way he would understand how to do survival horror. I mean, that's what the crux of what The Last of Us is. I mean, especially with the gameplay of you controlling the characters and fighting your way through the infected and hordes of zombies and things like that. And he was a great addition and a good touch to that episode. The suspense was great. Because this is live action, there's no respawn. There's no such thing as, you die and then you come back. We're doing this as real as it gets, as naturalistic as we can be. And they pretty much got the clickers to a T. Got them to a T. And I love the whole suspense. And I love that now the scene, the moment of Joel trying to reload his gun, and even the slightest hint of noise is drawing the clickers towards him. I loved how the frame is just on him and he's trying to just reload his gun. And then out of frame you can hear clicking. And in your head you're thinking, how close is this thing? How fucking close is this clicker? And then the camera just kind of slowly just goes off to the left. And you can see the clickers zeroing in on Joel's position. And then the clicker hits something else and then darts away somewhere else. And it was haunting, the cinematography, the flashlight right on its mushroomed, cut up head, which was really well done. And then we get to Tess's sacrifice. And through the dialogue of episode 2 and 1, we get the understanding that Joe and Tess are not happy with the things that they've done, but they've had to do them in order to survive. And Tess looks at Ellie as her redemption, as the last part of hope in this humanity besides Joel. And she realizes that if there's to be any of humanity in the future, because she believes Ellie really is the chosen one, she has to sacrifice herself. And in that moment, we no longer see Joel be vulnerable. We see him take action. He understands it's not something that he wants to do, but he understands it's something that must be done. And in that moment, he just kicks in, takes Ellie out of the situation, and we see Tess sacrifice herself with going out with a bang, literally. And just before that, we get we presume a stalker kiss her and give her tendrils down her throat and to make her infected. And just to add on that, I like the idea that in this adaptation, instead of it being spores, with spores in the game, there was certain areas, if there was a lot of affected in the area, it would let off the spores, and people in the game could be infected that way by inhaling this, bacteria that's in the air. But in this, with the idea of tendrils and the way that it's explained in episode 2 from Tess, is that you can be in one area, you can step on one tendril, and you can alert all the infected. And that almost gives another element to The Last of Us in the sense of horror that wasn't there before. And it makes the stakes even higher than what there were before. And just to talk a little bit off that case, I mean, initially when it happened, there was a debate like, oh, it was a bit weird. I took it that like as if, because the infected knew that she was already in stages of becoming a runner, the infected didn't want to rip her apart because they already see her as them, And also, I think it was a nice juxtaposition between how we know that Joel wanted to kiss Tess before he left. That's a deep moment in itself. Joel wanting to kiss Tess, but we understood what she was asking of him what to do. And obviously he can't take the risk of kissing her in that moment. He gets affected, then vice versa, can't proceed with the plot of the story. And I feel like the juxtaposition of Joel just looking at her, taking Ellie and getting out of the building, to an infected just walking up and kissing her, is almost in the sense of, if action wasn't taken, then everybody would have been infected, and the whole mission would have been in vain in itself. It would have been for nothing. Especially in the eyes of Tess, where she believes Ellie is the chosen one, that she could have the vaccine in her. But yeah, I absolutely loved the first 2 episodes, and tomorrow I will be talking about episode 3 because that seems to be a big talk online, and I'll be covering that. And I have some very interesting thoughts to share with you about episode 3. A long time. So, guys, as a final thought, please let me know if you want me to do weekly episode reviews, or would you rather me do the 3rd episode, and when season 1 finishes, then I can just give you a full review then. So basically, after I give you the episode review of episode 3, would you rather have weekly episode reviews, or would you rather a full season review of season 1 when the show finishes? Let me know in the comment section. Please let me know, what did you think of episode 1? What did you think of episode 2? Thank you all for watching. Please check the comment section for the funding event for the projectionists. We're trying to raise funds. There's a lot of rewards to win as well. I think you guys will really enjoy it. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out. Check the description. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.